Welcome everyone. It's June 15th, and this is the weekly SIG Windows meeting. This is a CNCF project. We follow the CNCF Code of Conduct. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to myself or any of the other leads from any of the projects. So I see one or two new folks. Give it just a second if anybody wants to speak up and say hello, introduce themselves to the community and let us know what you're interested in, or anything else. Does anybody want to speak up and say hello? Oh, okay, great. So then we'll dive right into the announcements. I don't see the person who's working on this, but Sonobui was Windows support was added to Sonobui. So this potentially opens up the door for doing some of the conformance testing, but it also has some interesting information in here around how to run a Windows plugin. So pretty exciting to see this come through. Go and check it out, leave some comments. They were asking for some feedback here, so if you're interested in using this or are working with it, be sure to give some feedback there. Any questions or comments?
Yay!
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Avrant, do you want to quickly talk about the projected volume bug that you found?
Yes, I can. So I think Windows has been broken with respect to projected volumes ever since that PR that I've mentioned got merged. Yeah, I think I've mentioned it here. It's implementation. So if you look at the implementation, I think that landed in 119, I would think, from what I understand. Or so what is the main issue here is so I think the way, do folks know what projected volumes are? I can quickly go through what a projected volume is. Or
I was going to say I didn't know what one was, but
yeah,
I was interested.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I found out all about this in the last few days. If you want to map multiple entities onto the same container path, you can use a projected volume to do that. So you have like multiple secrets or something like that that you want to map onto a particular directory in a container, you can use a projected volume to do that. And so as part of doing that, I think they realized that the permissions associated with whatever is being mounted needs to be appropriate. That is, it needs to be owned by the user that container is running as. So they introduced a fix for it, or they put up KEP and they implemented it, and they introduced a os.chown where they're calling chown on every entity that is getting mapped onto the container. Chown is not implemented for Windows. And so if you try to bring up a Windows pod with a projected volume, it's not going to come up.
Do you have an example of such a pod? It will be a lot easier to see and check.
I do.
That would be really helpful. Also included in the issue as well. Because I'm kind of wondering how this happened, because a lot of the projected volume tests are conformance, and we are running them.
Yeah, I did look into that also.
Check.
I did look into that also. What is happening is there is no test that is using a projected volume and a security context with a run as users field set. Only if that run as user, or sorry, for Windows it's run as username. Only if that is set will the chown even take effect, right? If you're not specifying that in the security context. There is no user to associate it with. So in fact, if you look at the current implementation, there is a loop. And if it says if fs user equals nil, just continue. And the chown is never called. So I think it's in Atomic Writer, James, if you're the one driving.
I think so I think you're saying that it is failing because of the security context, which has
Yeah, you're right there.
user, right?
If you go down a little bit, James. Sorry, Claudio. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. So if this fs user is nil, it'll continue and it'll never hit this chown, and everything will work, even if you have a projected volume. But if you have a projected volume where you have specified fs user or fs user, what do you call? So how should I put this? In Windows containers, if you have specified a fs user name or as username, you're never going to have this chown run on the items that are being projected. So in your case, at least the pod will come up. Like in a general case, the pod will come up, but the ownership will be incorrect. And that's sort of like a security hole, right? Whereas in the case of, I think, in the case of situations like OpenShift, where you have like admission controllers that are attaching things onto pods, we actually have the fs username, even though it's a Windows pod being set. And that's what really brought this problem out for us. If that was not being done, I think we would have completely missed the fact that there's a security hole in Windows. So I should really maybe rephrase that issue to say that the permissions are not being set, or to be more specific about it, because that issue that I've spoken about, I think you will only see it in OpenShift.
Or if somebody sets the run as username.
Or if somebody sets the run as
projected volume.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So
that would make sense.
Look at the conformance tests, and they're all passing, and then Operath found that it wasn't setting a username. That's why, because of this line here. So cool. Thank you for tracking that down and also starting to work on a fix. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so I found this, that's the other thing I can quickly run by you folks. I found this utility or a library called GoACL, where you can actually set the ACL for files. I'm guessing that's a good way to do it. I can send you a link to GoACLs.
Yeah, I think we have a few utilities that are used in HCS shim for this type of thing. So I'd probably prefer to use whatever we're using there, but I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, if there is an alternative, that's totally fine. I can use that. The main work here is like this determine effective run as username had to be added. You can't just assume it's only username, right? You have to sort of make sure that. So the way I'm doing it is if I find a username, I know at that point it's a Windows node, and we can completely ignore the user, which doesn't compute or doesn't make any sense for a Windows pod or a Windows container.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'll take a look at the PR once we get going here.
Yeah, it's not fully implemented, James. So just FYI.
Oh, okay.
I'm not it's just a work in progress. I just thought what I typically do is at the end of the day, I just push the PR and mark it as work in progress, so that I get hit by a bus, someone else can take it on and keep working.
All right, so I linked it there in the notes. Thanks for looking into that. Anybody else have any other questions on that before we move to the next topic?
That's pretty cool. Thanks for explaining all that, Arvind. I just learned a lot right now, so I appreciate that.
Oh, cool. No worries.
Yeah, same here. Thank you, Arvind. I knew the issue a little bit, but the way you explained it now, it makes sense. So thank you.
Okay, cool. No worries.
I think I heard somebody else speak up.
Yeah, I did, but all the points were already said, so there was no point to speak anymore.
Great. All right. And do we have Brandon on the call?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, hey everyone. So just a quick update from last week on this, the escape that was kind of published here in that article. So this is actually something that we did address back in January as part of limiting the privileges or the capabilities of the container processes to attain the TCP privilege. So basically, if you're running in a container and if you have a container process that's attempting to obtain TCP privileges, the host will directly block it as a container process. So that build I posted in the meeting notes is the build in which this fix was released. And so if you have this build, or if you have people asking, when this fix was released, you can send them this version, and everything should be included in there. So pretty much, if you're on the latest security updates, you should be totally fine and protected from this. And I think the other component of the malware posted there was pretty much just an improper security pod configuration that they kind of were relying on. So as long as you have your security configuration set properly and you're on the latest Windows security updates, then this should not be a problem at all. But if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
So Brandon, quickly, so what the person, whoever posted that Siloscape has done is they're on purpose running an OS build that doesn't have this fix, right? So that they can sort of, okay, all right. That's what I figured too, but.
Yeah, because I think they posted an article last year that was on a similar front, and this is, we fixed the issue from that. And I guess they kind of just wanted to continue off of their previous work.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the typical layered attack, right? They find one vulnerability, use that, escape into something else, and then make sure that, like, if you have a misconfigured node or something that has like kubelet, or not kubelet, kubectl lying around, use that to move on. So, okay, all right, that's I'm glad to hear this.
Yeah, I think at this point it's largely a non-problem if you're up to date. So
it's a friendly reminder to make sure you patch your OSs.
James, do you think it's worth adding a GOS check into Image Builder to make sure that if you're building a node with Image Builder, then you're on a version after this, to sort of a bit of a prompt to say you're doing something stupid if we don't get, if you're not building the latest version, basically?
I would say not specifically for this one, because I mean, the escapes come and like we keep a close eye, as Brandon was explaining, right? Our whole security team is like optimized for this. Brandon teams play a big part. So I think it would be a good check to just say like, hey, you're not on the latest security fix. That will be good, but not specifically targeting a specific fix or not.
Yeah, it seems to me maybe a warning that, hey, you're not on the latest, or you're X behind, and that you should be moving towards the thing. But I don't know, like if we put it as one, like in the January version, then that's 6 months ago, so it won't really do much in a year or two. So
is there a command on PowerShell that'll tell me whether I'm at the latest version or not? Or because I'm just trying to think how I can actually expose that test, because that would be a bit of a difficult test, right?
So like, I think,
sorry.
I think through PowerShell, and I'm trying to look up the command, I think there is a command that gets you what version you are in, right? And then our security fixes, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Brandon, but there is a way to identify which month and year and all that, right? Like we, not the KB number, but actually the build number probably is based off of year and month. So we could like pull up the theoretically, we could pull up the year and the month and date and kind of like append to it and then see if it works. I don't know if that will work, but
yeah, I mean, at least in terms of pulling a new image, like when we patch, we release a servicing patch, it gets pushed to MCR almost immediately. or at least very quickly. So if there's a new container image available, then that's pretty much the latest security patch on MCR. And in terms of the host version, I think you can go through the regular Windows security updates, just regular Windows update.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, in terms of, yeah, I think just the normal process of querying for a new container image version from the repository, I think would be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments there? All right. That looks like it was the last item on the agenda. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up ad hoc? Otherwise, we can give back a few minutes.
I just want to give you folks a little bit of heads up. The other thing that I'm working on, which is the log, is coming along slowly. There is potential that it might not hit the July 8th or July 11th, whenever the code freeze is. I've been able to add the, what is it called, the feature flag. The kubelet side is taking me some doing. Just wanting to give people, a quick heads up as early as I can.
Is there anything you need help with that you can answer questions or anything?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what we have done in OC, and I'm trying to move that to the kubectl. It's not a easy migration when compared to kubelet. So that's where I'm running into trouble. I'm trying to get some help from some of the OC folks to see what's the easiest way to do this.
Great. I guess I'd give a quick update on privileged containers. So I'm working on getting the tests up and running. And one thing I did find in containerd, since we don't have support through the CRI, which Perry has an open PR to actually enable that. If you're trying that out currently, you do need to pass a couple extra commands to, or a couple extra fields to the config to make sure the annotations get passed all the way through down to HCS shim. And I can drop a link into the Slack channel after this. But if you are trying that out and you're not seeing them come up as proper host process containers, then you might be missing that containerd configuration. So you also need to be using the PR on HCS shim, which I linked earlier. But just
there was some changes, wasn't there, that I needed to address that you found?
No, I think your PR, I tried it out and it was working. It looked like you just needed to update some of the update the mod file, and then there was, I think you had the wrong
Okay.
name for one of your tests or something, so it wasn't building the test, but the rest of it was working.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, great. Well, then I think we'll end it here. I'll stop the recording and then I'll hand it over to Jay and we'll do the after hours. And if you want to get some hands-on and play with the dev environment that Friedrich and Sladen have been working on, and of several other people, sorry if I forget your name, please stick around and yeah, we can get some hands-on. All right, talk to you all later.
All right. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Okay.